So I appeal to all countries to reject go-it-alone actions. Don't pour gasoline on the fire. You need this gasoline to drive your cars. Fiscal support should remain targeted and temporary. We are well-resourced to meet this shock. A resilient world economy is being tested again by now post-war in the Middle East. The conflict has caused considerable hardship in the region and around the globe. My heart goes out to all people affected by this war and all wars. In fact, had it not been for this shock, the world would have been in such a much better place than we would have been upgrading our growth projections. But now, even in our most hopeful scenario, we would have a downgrade. Why? Because of significant infrastructure damage, supply disruptions, losses of confidence, and other scaring effects. They're already baked in. Take Qatar's Ras Laffan complex, a tremendously important example of strategic investment done right. Producer of 93% of the Gulf's LNG, some 80% of it going to Asia-Pacific, a region that now endures serious fuel shortages. Ras Laffan has essentially been shut since March 2nd. It took a direct hit on March 19 and could take 3 to 5 years to restore to full capacity. Even in the best case, there will be no neat and clean return to the statu quo ante. Another relevant fact, note how ship passages through Bab el-Mandeb on the Red Sea have never quite recovered from the devastating disruptions there. They remain stuck at about half of their 2023 level. So the reality is we don't truly know what the future holds for transits through the Strait of Hormuz, or for that matter, for the full recovery of regional air traffic. What we do know is that growth will be slower, even if the new peace is durable. And we also know there are significant variations of the impact of this shock around the world. This is the picture, this is where we are coming from. Let's move to the last and most important question. What should countries do? And I will start with a word of caution up front. This being a classic negative supply shock, demand adjustment is unavoidable. To put it in a non-technical language, we cannot go through it without some pain. Policymakers can help to reduce this pain in multiple ways. And certainly, one way in which they can help is, please don't make matters worse. So I appeal to all countries to reject go-it-alone actions, export controls, price controls, and so on, that can further upset global conditions. Don't pour gasoline on the fire. You need this gasoline to drive your cars. The challenge will be to detect if and when changing conditions take us from one state of the world to another. For now, there is value in waiting and watching, with central banks stressing their commitment to price stability, but otherwise staying on hold with a stronger bias to action if credibility is in question. Fiscal authorities should provide targeted and temporary support to the vulnerable, aligned with their medium-term fiscal frameworks. Next, if inflation expectations threaten to break anchor and ignite a costly inflation spiral, then central banks should step in firmly with rate hikes. Fiscal support should remain targeted and temporary. Rate hikes, of course, would further dampen growth. That's how they work, and that is the right price to pay for price stability. Finally, in a severe tightening of financial conditions, they add a negative demand shock to the supply shock, and then monetary policy returns to a delicate balancing act, while fiscal policy, if and only if there is fiscal space, switches to well-calibrated demand support. We have to avoid untargeted tax cuts. We have to avoid energy subsidies that are not well targeted. And I cannot stress enough, we have to do it recognizing how limited fiscal space we have. We will point out that measures that mute the price signal, they also mute the necessary demand response, resulting in higher global energy prices. And we will work with countries to make sure that as the situation evolves, they have the agility to correct their policy stance appropriately. We are well-resourced to meet this shock. So, yes, our 191 member countries can count on us to support them with financing if needed. And they can count on us to bring them together to find a path forward through the fog of uncertainty.